Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Data Playbook. This is week 8, and I'm going to go through every single matchup. I'm also going to go through these in the short form like I've done before, so it'll be up to you to pause and look at any relevant information that's important to you. I will try to highlight a few pieces, but I'm just going to run through them pretty quickly. Here we have San Francisco going to Houston, where Houston is favored on the money line with a spread of 2.5 and a total line of 41.5. Your notable rankings are that San Francisco has a pretty good defense, being above average for everything and being pretty stingy on letting their opponents score. Unfortunately, they don't have the best scoring rank, even though their passing is the best in the league. Houston also has a very stingy defense, where they are the best at stopping their opponents from scoring, and top third numbers for the rest of their defensive information. Unfortunately, their offense doesn't quite keep up, but it is not too bad, top half or so. And they just need to score a little bit more, and they might win a lot more games. Here's your season averages if you need those for any information. Looking at our quarterbacks, you have Mac Jones because Brock Purdy's still listed as out, and CJ Stroud. Mac Jones has 73.6 total fantasy points this season for an average of 14.7 per game. CJ Stroud has 94.9 fantasy points this season for an average of 15.8 per game. Both quarterbacks have 4 passing interceptions, but Mac Jones also has a fumble loss due to a sack. If I flip over to the averages here, along with their breakdowns, and just looking at the carry share for both quarterbacks, you have Jones over here with 10.7 of the carry share, and for CJ Stroud over here, you have 13.5% of the carry share. The quarterbacks in this game are Christian McCaffrey and Nick Chubb. McCaffrey has 187.1 total fantasy points this season for an average of 26.7 per game. Nick Chubb has 50.6 total fantasy points this season for an average of 8.4. There are no other turnovers between these two, and if I switch over to their averages, along with their breakdown down here, it's pretty clear to see that Christian McCaffrey gets the largest share of carries on his team, with 67.3% of the carries. And over here, Nick Chubb also gets the largest share, though he does have some other people on his team that he shares with, but he gets about 42.5% of the carries on the team. Just a note that Woody Marks gets about 31% of the team's carries as well for being the backup to Chubb. Here's your number 1 receivers, with Juwan Jennings being number 1 for San Francisco. And right now, Xavier Hutchinson, because you have Nico Collins and Christian Kirk out. Juwan Jennings gets 38.7 total fantasy points, with 7.7 on average per game. And Xavier Hutchinson has 37.8 total fantasy points, with an average of 6.3 per game. With no other turnovers, we'll switch over to the averages. And looking at their receiving share of their teams, you have Juwan Jennings getting this 8.8%. For his team. He has been plagued with some injuries throughout the season and missed a couple weeks in here. With Hutchinson, you get about that same percentage at 9.25%. For the second receivers, you also have Ricky Pearsall that's out. So you have Kendrick Bourne being your numbers 2 here, and Jaden Higgins for Houston. I may not go through Higgins too much here. I'm going to switch over to his averages here real soon if you need any of that. But these two are further down in the depth chart, so I'm just going to flash the information and then move on. I think the only thing to note is that Kendrick Bourne does get a respectable 63.5 total fantasy points this season, averaging 10.5, 10.6 per game. And then here's a moment for your averages if you want to look into them in more depth. Both these guys get pretty small shares, so it's not worth looking into too much. And if we look at the receiving share real fast, the only thing notable is that Kendrick Bourne does get about 20% of his team's, 20.5% of his team's receiving share. And Higgins over here has about 9.1% of the team's receiving share. Wrapping up with the tight ends, you have George Kittle and Dalton Schultz, with Kittle having 12.5 total fantasy points this season since he's only had 2 weeks, averaging 6.2 in each of those games. Dalton has 58.4 total fantasy points this season, averaging 9.7. Flipping over the averages if you have them. And looking down here, of course, Kittle gets very little since he's been out, so less than a percent of the team's receiving share. But over here, you get Dalton Schultz with quite a bit of the receiving share at 21.3%. So this may come down to this team's dealing with their injuries. They both have some notable injuries, especially in their receiving area. So we'll see how the passing rank holds up here for San Francisco. Maybe still strong for Houston over here, but they may not have much of a passing game and may need to rely on their rushing game instead, as should San Francisco. So there you have the details for this matchup. I hope that you enjoyed. If you did and you got something out of it, leave a like and subscribe, and leave a comment on what else you might want to see in the future. Other than that, thank you so much for watching.